Hello and welcome to Odds Now, and we've got the band back together as we are hosting or trying a weekly darts podcast. It's not got a name yet, but you know the familiar faces, formerly of Doubles and Trebles, now of Odds Now. Myself, Adam Smido Smith, and that man, Matt Pieman Hill, as you will know very well. And we're just going to give it a go. We're looking at the darts. There's always plenty to talk about, particularly at this time of the year where the majors come thick and fast. There's all sorts of Players' Championship and Euro Tour to talk about. Recorded on a Monday evening, released on a Tuesday morning. So make sure you're liking and you're subscribing and you're going to get your darts fix. So, Mr. Pieman, how are you?
Yeah, very well. Good to be back. Good to be back as a duo as well. Name suggestions in the comments for this podcast, I think, would be good. I did have a couple of goes, but I thought, no, let's leave it to the public to decide. But I think basically, as you suggest, a little bit of a look back at last week, a little bit of a look ahead to the coming week, and just so much going on at the moment that we're not going to be short of things to talk about, are we?
Missed doubles would be my suggestion early doors there. If you've missed this duo, and also we missed plenty of doubles as players.
I like it. You've not thought of that on the spot.
I have. We're going to keep things pretty simple. Looking back at what happened last weekend, where there was Pro Tour and Euro Tour, and then the week ahead, and also today we've had the World Grand Prix draw released as a result of the weekend's play concluding and the rankings being confirmed. So plenty to look forward to. And we'll start last week, Pieman, on two Players' Championship events in Leicester, back-to-back, where familiar names who've already won events this year were winning again. Gary Anderson, Pieman's favourite, and Dave Chisnall, who is number one in the Pro Tour rankings, and for good reason. He keeps winning.
Yeah, I wasn't on Gary Anderson. As you will confirm, I did message in the morning saying I think Gary Anderson or Chris Dobey. I think Anderson was 20-1 and Dobey was 28. But then the usual chaos ensued, didn't it, with the Players' Championship markets when they price them up and then you have like Littler doesn't turn up, Price doesn't turn up, Van Gerwen doesn't turn up. Suddenly, like all these like 20-1 shots get cut into about 9-2. But there's no obvious pulping going on or anything. So it is one of the beauties of you only ever get this on the first Players' Championship of the run, don't you? Because by day two, they've cottoned on and the good prices are gone. So I always think if I'm going to get a big price winner, it's got to be on that first one. So like all eyes on tomorrow as we speak. I did think Gary Anderson was a bit big because Gary Anderson's basically taken a hiatus from the Players' Championship for a little while. He hadn't played in like the last 5 or 6, rocked back up and duly won. As a consolation, no, this is a little bit after timing, but we were on Connor Scott, who was runner-up there. Gary Anderson. We've been backing him at big prices without any luck for a couple of months now, but finally came good there. And I was left feeling a little bit sick actually watching that final because I know you had limited coverage of it, but basically the first 4 legs were atrocious. Look, honestly, one of the worst standard finals I've ever seen for 4 legs. I think Anderson was averaging 79 after 4 legs. So as a Scott backer, for them to go in at 2-2 when Anderson's averaging 79 was a bit of a killer, really. He should have been 3-1 or 4-0 up, as he was. Obviously, wasn't, and Anderson got his arse in gear, and that was the end of that, really. But look, still a good place winner. And day 2, Dave Chisnall having a great year. He's winning on the Euro Tour, second Pro Tour title for him again as well. Obviously, we're coming up to this sort of major season, as we've always called it. Chizzy, well documented. Never had any luck in the majors. He's coming into it in fine form, must be said. He's playing some really, really nice stuff this year. But we all know with Dave Chisnall, when the big lights and the TV cameras come on, generally something goes wrong. And he does have quite a good record in the World Grand Prix. Just putting it out there. Former finalist, 2-time finalist, I think. So likes the format. But all in all, enjoyed it. What was your take on those Pro Tours? Anyone that caught your eye in particular?
Anderson, he does his interview after he's just here to play darts, and he says it in a very unique way that I can't replicate. Connor Scott, he hit the 25 on an attempt at 173 times in the final alone. I think. And then also, I think there was a stage where it could have gone, 6-5 or 6, something like that, and he missed a double 18, I think. But if you just look at the previous 7 winners of Pro Tours, this is since August the 2nd: Rock, Heta, Dobey, Littler, Van Gerwen, Anderson, Chisnall. cream is rising. They're shearing it round because the quality goes so far down the rankings nowadays. They're certainly sharing it round. But some very familiar names winning Players' Championships. And there's 3 this week in Wigan, back to back to back. 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of October. And there's another 4 more before the end of October as well. So in October alone, 7 Players' Championships. Yes, plenty to look forward to there. Also over the weekend, Pieman, the Euro Tour, which I've kind of got to grips with as the year's gone on. They're 9
Took
or
you
10.
a while, hasn't it? There's a hard sell.
It has, because they changed the way they was doing it, the rankings, some the ranked players into round 2, less local qualifiers, etc. But yeah, I'm into it now because the short format, again, like Players' Championship, 1st to 6 until you get to the latter stages, where it becomes 7 and 8, almost identical to a Players' Championship, really, but it's just on TV over 2 or 3 days. Schindler was the winner there. And again, these Euro Tour titles have really been sheared round. He beat Searle in the final. Another really good weekend. We got Littler and Humphreys quite early doors. What stood out to you over in Switzerland?
Ryan Searle, I felt sick watching it for him. 7 match starts missed in the final. He was 7-4 up in a race to 8 and managed to blow it, lose 8-7. There was particularly the worst match start. There's always some that are worse than others when somebody misses multiple match starts. There was one where at double 5, I think it was his 6th match start, and he threw it and he walked to the board like it was in, but the caller hadn't called anything. I know Ryan Searle's eyesight is notoriously appalling, right? But if the caller hasn't called, it's not in. And that, to me, I was just thinking his head has frazzled here. Inevitably the next match that was even further away, and he shook his head. And to be honest, once Schindler got it into that decider, he was fantastic. He was not letting anyone take it off him. That's a 2nd Euro Tour title for Schindler, who'd never won a PDC title coming into this year. Now doubled his tally there up to 2. I think the Euro Tour is a nice bridge into between the floor, like you say, similar format to these Pro Tour events, but no crowd on the floor. You've got a really raucous crowd here, but Schindler's got to now take that next step. And I remember Riccardo Pietrasco winning one of these last year, but he won it in Germany with a very, pro Pietrasco crowd. And when he came to the UK, he didn't have that, and he struggled with that. Obviously, Schindler, far more experienced, far more used to playing in UK crowds. But it is a difference because it's not very often the crowd's going to be behind Martin Schindler, really, in the UK. Whereas in the Euro Tour, he's very popular, and the crowd were surprisingly somewhat with him against Searle. I think they just like to see a comeback, don't they, crowd sometimes. I did really feel for Searle. That's a kind of loss that could leave a mark, to be honest. It's not won a Euro Tour. That was his first final. So to be that, that far ahead and blow it could give him a little bit of a battle and a hurdle to overcome, but he's good enough to overcome it. I know he's got some critics, Ryan Searle, who still, have questioned his mentality to get over the winning line in big games before. That's not going to help his case. In his defence, we've seen a lot of players over the years struggle with that kind of thing. Michael Smith being the obvious example, Peter Wright, Luke Humphreys to an extent, Clayton. When you get that first win, it often opens the floodgates. Searle is good enough to win major titles, but I just can't really be backing him until he does it, because he's given me enough reasons not to want to, which is a shame because, as I wrote in my column on oddsnow.com, the World Grand Prix, logically, is a great fit for him. Starting on double top, finishing on double top. He's mustard on that tops, isn't he? So, you'd want to be with him, but I just can't. When I've seen him miss 7 match starts in a final, I can't be backing him about 28-1, which I think he is. Other names that I would take out of that Euro Tour as well. Vessel Nyman played some fantastic stuff, as he has done for the last few months, to be honest. Since August the 1st, he's actually in the top 5 in the world for averages. So that's how well he's playing. His win over Chris Dobey in the last leg of that match, he was against the dart. He went off 60, and then he hit back-to-back 180s and 81 in 2. And that is... under any circumstances, that's world class. In a last leg decider against one of the world's best players, that's serious bottle. And I'm a big fan of his. But unfortunately, as you can attest, his price has been absolutely splattered in these Players' Championship markets. He's going off like 25s now. I'm struggling to even back him, which is a shame because I think I'd be amazed if he doesn't win one between now and November. But yeah, it's all about price, isn't it? As you know.
It is. Yeah. Well, talking of Gerwyn Price, I was looking earlier.
Lovely, lovely.
I mean, what is he on the? Is he seventh ranked? Did I see for this upcoming World
Seventh
Grand
seed in
Prix?
the Grand Prix.
Seventh
Yeah.
seed, yeah, sliding. You know, I said over 2 years ago he won't win another major, but that's maybe for a whole nother video. Just on the European tour, there's been 12 events so far this year. We've had 10 different winners. Only Luke Littler's won twice. Again, that's a similar story to the Players' Championship. On as in the variety of winners, on Searle for the Swiss Darts trophy. In that final with those missed darts. You know, I watched him in the quarters against Gurney. He chucked one in at tops. It was in flush, lovely jubbly, right in the middle of tops, and he went to throw his next dart. Like the ref had to tell him, "You've won." So he genuinely does struggle to see. He's just one of them.
Yeah, for anyone that doesn't know, he's basically they were discussing this on commentary. I think Matt Edgar, who's friends with him, said that his eyesight is so bad. He wears contacts, but his eyesight is so bad that he's only just legally allowed to drive with his contacts in. That's how bad it is, because he had an astigmatism in both eyes, which wasn't diagnosed as a child. And by the time they've diagnosed it, they can't really do much to correct it. So the man is nearly blind. It's ridiculous how good he could be at darts if he could see the board. But yeah, like just to finish on Searle, like comes across one of the most decent, genuine blokes on there. Love to see him win one. I'm sure he will eventually. But yeah, tough one for him to take that.
He's just in that group, and it's just a testament to the quality in depth. It's just in the group, and I know some of these have won majors and TV, etc. But it's just in the group with the likes of the Cullens, the Ross Smiths, Chisnall to an extent, Josh Rock, etc. Is just in there that have got the game on the day. Absolutely fantastic.
The mid tier.
Yeah. But you just need that consistency and getting over the line. Final thing on the Euro Tour from last weekend, what I would say, Callum Ridds. I don't particularly like Callum Ridds and the way that he plays and sometimes falls apart. He had a very, very bad week the week before in Hungary. Really bad. Capitulated against who was it? The Hempel. But yeah, Ridds made the semi-final. First time I believe he's made the semi-finals of the Euro Tour. He did get battered in that semi-final, averaging only 85, but he'd done really well before that. So hats off to Callum Ridds, because to turn that round in a week, he was looking like he was gone at the game, and then to make a semi-final, fair play.
Yeah, the signs have been there for a couple of months with Callum Ridds. His averages have been creeping up. His 180 hitting's been creeping up, which is what you kind of associate him with, isn't it? And we all remember that run to the World Championship quarterfinals where he lost a deciding set to Peter Wright in an epic game. And it looked like then he had the world at his feet, but it hasn't worked out. He's had problems away from darts. He's had problems on the board. He's changed his throw. Anyone who only watches darts once a year will remember Ridds being one of the quickest throwers you've ever seen. He's still quick, but he's nowhere near as quick as he wants. It's a little bit more considered, and like if you change your throw, you're bound to have a bit of a negative effect in the short term. Seems to be getting on top of that a little bit now, but I think it's all between the ears with Ridds, isn't it? You talk about capitulations, you talk about head loss, and some of the way he reacts. We've seen him on social media biting back at people and stuff as well. So he's still a young guy. I think he's 24. I mean, he's got plenty of time to mature and get that out of his system, hasn't he? But he's got bags of natural talent. And yeah, I think his win rate's up at about 60% for the last 3 months, which is really encouraging. And yeah, that run to the Euro Tour semi-final was preceded by a run to the Pro Tour quarterfinals a couple of days earlier. So whatever has clicked in the last few days for him, he's really playing some nice stuff now. And if he takes that into this week, I wouldn't be surprised to see him go really deep in one of the Pro Tours.
Yeah, so as a reminder, Pro Tours 24, 25 and 26 in Wigan this week. And a lot of the names that we've mentioned will feature heavily. And we will wait until Tuesday morning to see if the likes of Humphreys, Littler, Van Gerwen and the like are going to play. And that will make the market thereas. I think the next thing to touch on, Pieman, is this confirmed draw for the World Grand Prix. That might be worth getting up and just having a quick
100%.
chat through. Yeah. So when does this get underway? It's a couple of weeks away, yeah?
Yeah, I think it's the 7th of October. Don't quote me, but I probably should have checked that. But yeah, I don't think it's not this week. It's start of next week, I think, and runs right throughout the week. 7th to the 13th rings a bell.
Yeah, and that's in Leicester, double in, double out. Yeah, the chief thing to take away from this is that the top 8 are ranked, and Luke Littler is not one of them, and he has drawn the fella he faced in the World semi-final last year, Rob Cross.
Yeah, belting game. That's one that stands out on it. So does Michael Smith, Gary Anderson at the top of the other half of the draw. But yeah, like I think you said it, in messaging off filming, like what a brilliant tournament in terms of the depth and the quality in there. And anyone that's kind of made it into this tournament is a top quality operator. I mean, even the very lowest ranked players, the likes of Luke Woodhouse, Brendan Dolan, you still wouldn't be betting against them knocking a big name out, would you? They maybe haven't got the staying power to go and win this title, but there's no easy draws. You're not getting one or two nice games to settle yourself into this tournament, are you? You're probably going to have to beat 4 or 5 quality players to win this title. And the double in, double out format just adds a little bit to it, doesn't it? Just there's certain players that you associate with this format, I'd say, more than others, but at the end of the day, I always think you've just got to have a plan and stick to it, don't you? I mean, Michael van Gerwen has had a lot of success here, but he isn't afraid to change his starting double, which I would say for most players is a no-no. But for MVG, he kind of does what he wants, doesn't he? And it works for him. He's very confident and he has a plan, which always impresses me. Sometimes he'll just instantly change from tops to 14s or something just to get himself off, and that's just playing relaxed and playing with a free mind. And there's probably a lot to be learned from him there. But yeah, there's certain players that you know exactly what double they're going to be going for. I had a little delve into the double stats earlier, and the best doubler in this field in 2024. Would you care to guess?
It might take me by surprise. Menzies?
Damon Heta. Damon Heta, the best checkout percentage on the PDC tour this year. Yeah. So, and you know where he's going to be going double 16. It loves that part of the board. Let's see if it holds up for him. I certainly hope it does. He's drawn Mike De Decker in round 1. But yeah, I mean, we should probably touch on that Cross Littler game, as you say, because Littler, I would say Littler's World Championship run, it gets glorified a little bit because of the context around it. If you actually look at who he beat up until the semi-finals, it was not exactly an illustrious list. And I was kind of, look, you couldn't help but be impressed with it going into it. But that semi-final, I was kind of thinking, okay, this is a step up now.
Yeah, so did I.
You're playing Rob Cross in a World Championship semi-final. I think he was averaging like 110 after 4 sets.
Yeah, that's where I became a believer. That's where I became a believer.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. You're quite good, yeah. So, like, look, he's proved us. He's just proved everybody that there's no flash in the pan here. He is as good as anybody at this game in this world right now. I'm sure we'll discuss it in future weeks, whether him and Luke Humphries, who's the rightful favourite for this World Championship, they keep flip-flopping. I think a lot of places now have Littler. He's shown some good form in the last few weeks. I just worry with Littler sometimes that he does throw in a real stinking performance, but it tends to be on the Euro Tour and the floor. And he loves he's a showman, isn't he? Loves the big events, raises his game for them. He's a worthy favourite for this tournament, but by God, Cross is going to give him a stern examination, because Cross has got some, he's a handy double 18 will be his go-to, his calling card. And I wouldn't like to call that game, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's obvious to say, given how young he is and his first proper year on the tour, but we've never seen him in a double in tournament. I mean, there's probably no reason to doubt him. I mean, look what he's done this year: won on the Euro Tour, Pro Tour, 9 daughters all over the gaff, World Final, etc. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned Michael van Gerwen earlier. He's won this 6 times, so clearly knows his way around a World Grand Prix. Yeah, but like you say, Pieman, this is why it's my favourite tournament, because it's the proper, genuine top 32, and everywhere you look, there's quality. There's no group stage like the Grand Slam. There's no gimme games against South African qualifiers in the Worlds. I really like this tournament, definitely.
Yeah, and obviously next week we'll probably spend a large chunk of this show, if not doing an independent video, previewing this tournament from a betting perspective. But I need to have a good delve into the draw before I decide where my angles are. But like you say, 8 seeds. Immediately, my start point would be, okay, which of these seeds do I kind of want to take on the most? Nathan Aspinall, I would say, is vulnerable, coming back from yet another long-term injury. Hasn't actually won any event of any sort on the PDC since the last year's match play. So he's over a year without a title. He's had horrific luck with injury. Looks to have come back pretty well from it, from what I've seen from him on the floor. But this is going to be an ultimate test, isn't it? And he comes in against Ryan Searle, who well, as I say, Ryan Searle in the early rounds of a tournament is a different beast to Ryan Searle in like a final or a semi-final. So yeah, that's going to be a tough start for Aspinall. That quarter looks quite interesting there, but then again, you've got Cross or Littler. You've got to try and pick the winner of that. So there's no easy way in. You do just kind of have to go with a hunch of who you think's playing well and who's going to suit the format. And like you said, quite a lot of debutants and new faces in here. I think we're all excited to see how Cameron Menzies can go in this kind of tournament because he's been unbelievable on the floor. We saw flickers of it at the Euro Tour this weekend, but for me, as a Menzies fan, I'm a big fan of the way he plays the game. And I just need to see more of him on TV, on big stages. He needs to get that comfort that he can replicate that floor game on the big stage. Because at the moment, he's one of these players whose temperament can go a little bit, and he does play up to the crowd and pull faces and have you. And if he's having a bad game, I could see the wheels coming off, which would worry me against someone like a Dave Chisnall. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, there'll be a watching brief on some players for me. There'll be others that I quite fancy, but yeah, we'll cover more of the betting stuff next week, I suppose.
Yeah, I just wondered, with there being 7 Pro Tour events this month, there is a market on Star Sports who basically price up to win any Players' Championship event this year. So those that are yet to win one are the likes of Humphreys, believe it or not, Going Price, Cross, Bunting, Menzes, and Neiman are both 5-1, who we've spoke about before. So I just wondered whether there might be any interest there, given that they come thick and fast. We're not going to be able to do a preview for every Players' Championship, A, because they come so quickly, and B, because there's no prices. But you can get a price about players to win any of the remaining 7 events.
Yeah, well, look, I think people would be amazed if you told them there's been 20-something Player Championship events and Luke Humphreys hasn't won one. But to caveat, he has skipped quite a few as well. But like he's gone very close a few times, hasn't he? He's been in a couple of finals, a few semis. If you told me Humphreys was going to turn up to all remaining Player Championship events, I would say that price on offer is an absolute steal. But I think there's a fair chance he skips 3 or 4 more. So you have to factor that in. If I was going to back someone in that market, I'd be wanting someone that I know is going to turn up to every event that's been playing very well. And it would be that man, Vessel Nyman, who I just want to give a plug as well for. It wouldn't be a dart show with us if I wasn't putting somebody up for the Worlds. I'm not saying, I always say this, I'm not saying he's got to win it. Yeah, nothing changes with me. But I do have to say 100-1 for this guy's natural talent. If anyone was going to do a Littler, it would be Nyman. Because if you compare where he was 12 months ago to now, it's just a completely different player. He played in the Worlds last year. A lot of people won't remember that. He played Steve Beaton in round 1. And it was a very partisan, beaten crowd, as you would imagine. And Nyman just didn't really play anything like he'd been playing through the year. But he'd been playing on the Challenge Tour in, the arse end of nowhere, in like a leisure centre. Now he's had a full year of playing Euro Tour, playing Pro Tour, playing the best and this and that. And I don't think he'll have any trouble transferring his game to the big stage. Obviously, he's not in the Grand Prix, which is a shame. If he'd have won the Euro Tour event yesterday, he would have sneaked in here instead of Luke Woodhouse. So that was a shame. I would have loved to have seen him in this. But we're going to see him in the European Championship. We're going to see him in the Players' Championship finals. Plenty of time to get used to the big stage for the Worlds. He would be one man, if you were saying to me, who's a big outsider that could have a deep run. He's your man, 100-1, still widely available.
It's just the old, he's not going to be ranked type argument. It does make it difficult for them. And debut, I know that what happened.
It's stacked against them. I'm aware of that, but I'm in the business of backing big prices, and I know I'll go a long time without winners. But look, Littler was 100-1 last year in November when he won the World Youth Championship, and we had plenty of runners go close as well. Josh Rock, Dimitri Vandenberg. You do get them, but it's hard going. But I just think generally, if somebody just wanted to throw away on a big price that they could forget about, and it come round to December and he's maybe halved in price or whatever, and you might get a bit of fun from him. That's all I'm saying.
Get him doubled up with the horse that I've just put up at 66-1 for the York, Zarakem.
There you go.
That'll give you an
idea. There you go. Retirement.
Any other business before we wrap up episode 1 of the No Nickname Darts podcast?
Yes. One final bit of business that I do want to talk about, just Kenyan darts. I think it's fitting that this is the ending to our first podcast. What an unbelievable event that was in Nairobi. Oh my God, I was on the edge of my seat last night. Peter Waituri Oh my God. Yeah, my missus absolutely gave me in the neck. She was trying to watch some video on YouTube. She said, I can't even hear this video because you're watching darts in Kenya in what appears to be a leisure centre or
It was
something.
like a cricket pavilion. That's what it
Oh, it
was.
was unbelievable. Vuvuzelas in the crowd.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh man, what an atmosphere! But if anyone doesn't have a clue what I'm talking about here, it was the PDC World Championship African qualifier at the weekend, and it was normally it's a South African. Well, it is virtually every year, isn't it? That represents Africa. But what we've discovered is that the PDC is also alive and kicking in Kenya, and they had the qualifier in Kenya this year, and it made for a unique atmosphere. Partisan Kenyan crowd, I would say. Devon Peterson on comms, along with a random Kenyan bloke who I really enjoyed.
Well, he
And
did better on comms than he did on the dartboard, Devon, because he averaged 58.
He did. Yeah, he had a tough old time. He did.
Yeah.
But the Kenyan guy on comms was fantastic as well. Some of the questions he was asking, couldn't fault the enthusiasm. But I think he said what. He was saying things like, "What does a treble-less visit do for your chances in this leg?" Then I was thinking, well, doesn't do it much good. But can I just say that semi-finals and the final, I was pleasantly surprised at the standard. And I know everybody's kind of making a joke of this event, but really, the final between Cameron Carillison and Peter Waituri both average 87 over 15 legs, which is proto standard, isn't it? Let's be honest. Especially over the longer format. This Waituri was an absolute sensation, and I think he's gained. I've seen the PDC tweeting a couple of things today, and there's like 28 responses underneath each tweet saying, "Get Waituri to the Worlds, get him a wild card," and all this. So this man has become an overnight sensation in the darting fraternity.
Well, if he was a woman, he might get a wild card entry, but given that he's not a woman,
that's a whole other podcast.
He won't be getting a
That is
wild
a whole
card
other
entry.
podcast.
Yeah.
Well, I'm still hopeful they might sneak him in, but yeah, Waituri took it to 15th and final leg. He had 154 to win it against the darts and went treble 20, and just wired the double 17. It was a heartbreaking moment. And I think my favourite part of the whole experience was the time these guys were taking in between darts. They were throwing one dart, stepping back, doing deep breaths. It was like Dimitri Vandenberg on steroids. Honestly, it was like a minute between throws at one point. Waituri at this first treble 20 stepped back, waited for 30 seconds while this crowd were like murmuring, then hit another treble 20, then had another minute before missing the double. Then Carillison came and did exactly the same. And it was just gripping to watch. If the PDC have got any sense, they'll be commissioning the Kenyan dart circuit, similar to the German Super League, because I would be tuning in every single week.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a signal of how much Matt Pieman Hill loves darts. So thanks for tuning in to episode 1. We've got no name. It might be Miss Doubles. It might be the No Nickname Darts podcast. But yeah, thank you very much.
Miss Doubles until we get something better is my vote.
Okay, cool. And we'll probably be back doing a full preview of the World Grand Prix, which I think starts a week today. Thank you very much.